Up, homies?
How can it be easier to sell in another here, guys? Good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone. What a great day to be here.
Just want to talk to y'all for a second. This is a beautiful, beautiful opening statement. Listen carefully, guys, as we embark on a new journey here. Together, we're going to make things better no matter where you live, but it's important to fix your own, right? To take care of your own. I think that's the important lesson. And it's going to come at the cost of other people, but at least you're protecting your own, right? So Americans will pay more for all the Canadian goods from now on. You know, 200-300% increase. They're not going to get our energy anymore, so they're going to have to, like, 50 states are going to have to power their own states, not rely on Canadian power. No more Canadian oil, no more Canadian gas, electric, nothing. We can't. We're losing money, right? We're going to have to tariff you 99 tariffs.
This incredible facility. I'm Sid
Tariffs
Houston,
are
the Premier of Nova
taxes.
Scotia. How can it be easier to sell in another country than another province? It's absolutely ridiculous. I have a medical device company back home that says they would love to sell across Canada, but they don't have the time or energy to deal with the painful nuances of 13 different jurisdictions. In the US, they deal with one for the whole country. So stop and think about that. It's easier to sell in another country than in another province or territory. And we've all shaken our heads at this. We've talked about how silly it is, but nothing has changed. Well, it's time for things to change. It's time to protect Canadian companies by opening access to all 40 million Canadian consumers. Folks, there is no provincial or territorial government in this country that would put their citizens at risk. Could a meat pizza in Nova Scotia really be safe for Nova Scotians but not Ontarians? We've made laws and barriers that actually suggest that a frozen meat pizza made in Nova Scotia is safe for Nova Scotians but not Ontarians. Give me a break. I trust every province, and I trust the standard they set for licensing, certification, or for any goods. I believe that what's good enough for Ontario is good enough for Nova Scotia and vice versa. And Premier Ford agrees with me. He said, let's stop nitpicking and let's fix this. And this is why this guy is loved so much. I'm so proud to be here today with Premier Ford. Premier Ford is an incredible person. He cares about people. He cares about moving things forward. He wants people to have every opportunity and to succeed. And I cannot say strongly enough the confidence I have in Doug and his entire team. He always focuses on the big picture. There is no one I would rather start this process with than the man that's standing right here beside me in Doug Ford. We're getting the ball rolling to get rid of the foolishness that has held back companies from growing and creating good jobs. And today, together, we will take the first meaningful step to eviscerate internal provincial trade barriers. I can tell you that when I get home to my legislature in Nova Scotia, I will table the Free Trade and Mobility Within Canada Act, or as I like to call it, the Good Enough for Canadians, then Good Enough for Canadians Act. And this bill will set in legislation that any goods approved in any province or territory can be sold in Nova Scotia without any further testing, red tape, or foolishness. And the same thing for service providers. If you're a roofer, or a healthcare worker, a teacher, you name it, good enough for Ontario, Alberta, BC, on and on and on, that it's good enough for Nova Scotia. And why? Because I trust the other provinces and territories to have stringent requirements for their professionals and service providers. So if you're in another province and you're in good standing with your association, you can come to Nova Scotia and make it happen. This lifting of restrictions will apply to any province that passes the same or similar legislation. Folks, it's a two-way street. And my message to other provinces and territories is do your part and we will do ours. And of course, Doug Ford has answered the call. He said only 4 words: let's get it done. We're on this road together, and I encourage everyone else to join us. If everyone gets on board, when you go to the store, the best, most affordable option will always be the Canadian option. We're talking about this. We're talking about the need to connect our entire country from one end to the other, to make life just a little bit easier and more affordable for Nova Scotians, Ontarians, and for every single Canadian. Which is why I also want to make it clear that connecting Canadians means also connecting Canada via a pipeline from west to east, so that we in the Maritimes and Atlantic Canada no longer have to rely on the U.S. for energy. We can get it from our friends in Alberta. We can get it from our friends in the west, from other parts of Canada. I urge industry and governments alike to get on board with that concept as well, whether it's energy, goods, or services. Let's bring down the barriers between provinces for a true Team Canada approach. And I can't leave this moment without saying, on this day, go Canada, go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, a man who needs no introduction, my friend, one we all know and love, Premier Doug Ford.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much. I'm going to get to Premier Houston in a minute. But Enrico, thank you. And I want to thank all the folks here at HPG for hosting us today. They make incredible products here and just top-notch, first-class operation. But first, I want to welcome Z Hamid, your PC candidate in Melton. Thank you, Z, true leader. And what I can say about my friend, Premier Tim Houston, you know, he's one of my closest allies, closest friends, and all the premiers. We all get along very well. But what a great premier from the province of Nova Scotia. And the people of Nova Scotia spoke loud and clear not too long ago, a couple months back, and is giving Tim a mandate to move forward. Tim and his government have been amazing partners to Ontario. You know, when I always have a question, the first person I pick up the phone to is Premier Houston. He's been with me at the table with the Prime Minister. He's been beside me in Washington. Tim, you've been there with me every step of the way. And I'm just so grateful for your friendship, your leadership, and I'm so grateful for your support. As Tim is showing us today, Canadians are standing united from coast to coast to coast to protect Canada from Donald Trump's tariffs. The history books will show it was Canada's premiers who first answered the call to stand up and fight Donald Trump's tariffs. We've never let the political game
Subscribe.
in Ottawa distract us, and we never will. As we stare down the threat of Donald Trump's tariffs, it's never, ever been more important for every level of government, for every region to come together to be united. Over 150 years ago, Canada was born and formed against the odds. Our great country was built through sheer grit and hard work, through determination and vision. Today, as we're facing the biggest threat to our economic security and independence as a country, we need to rise to the challenge. We need to have the same grit, the same work ethic, the same determination, and the same vision as the great fathers of our Confederation. It's been amazing to watch Canadians from coast to coast to coast, of all ages and every creed and every race. They're uniting in defense of Canada. They're speaking out and saying, Canada will never be the 51st state, and Canada is not for sale. Now, governments at all levels in every region, we need to match these words with bold actions. We need to strengthen the economic ties that bind our country together. We need to build the true North strong and free, with a mandate from the people. A re-elected PC government will fight to protect Canada. We will fight for the people, their jobs, and their communities, and have a united country. More self-reliant, just like the Canadian Pacific Railway connected and united a young Canada. A new generation of infrastructure and resource projects will bring our country together. They'll reduce our dependence on the United States, create new opportunities for Canadian workers, and usher in a new century of Canadian prosperity. New pipelines, transmission lines, more rail lines, airports and ports, we need to build them. We need to bring Canadian oil and gas, critical minerals, energy and electricity to new markets and new customers. And we need to diversify our trade and maximize our leverage on a global stage. A re-elected PC government stands ready to support Energy East, Northern Gateway, and pipeline projects to Canada's northern coast. Provinces and territories are doing our part. We're cutting the red tape and we're ready to build. With the Ring of Fire, the largest deposit of critical minerals in the entire world, and the most ambitious plan to build out nuclear power in the world right here in Ontario, including the first small modular reactor in the G7. Ontario is ready to help build the future of Canada, but I have to be clear. Right now, today, the biggest barrier blocking us from getting our immense resources to market, to getting our critical minerals out of the ground, or building the nuclear power plants that will fuel our economic growth for decades to come, it's not in Washington, Moscow, or Beijing. It's right here in Ottawa. We need the federal government to get out of the way. We need the federal government to cut its layers and layers of bureaucracy and red tape by scrapping impact assessment requirements that raise costs, slow down approvals, and stop provinces and territories from building. With Donald Trump on a mission to disrupt our economy, we can't afford decades of delays. We need to build, and we need to build now. As we build up Canada's economy, we need to tear down internal trade barriers. Internal trade barriers cost Canada's economy $200 billion every year. They reduce our national GDP by 7.3%, and they add 14.5% to the cost of goods and services Canadians buy every day. A re-elected PC government is ready to support a true labour mobility deal. We're ready to remove all Ontario's party-specific exemptions under the Canada Free Trade Agreement. We're ready to sell Ontario's world-class beer, cider, and wines to more Canadian customers across our country. For too long, we've lacked the political courage to do what's right for Canadian workers, for Canada's economy. With great partners like Premier Houston, that ends now. Together, we're going to lead by example. We're going to deliver free trade within Canada, and we're going to continue pressing the federal government to invest in more Canada's military to meet and exceed our NATO commitments. It's the right thing to do to protect Canada. It's the right thing to do to create jobs. Ontario stands ready to do our part with targeted supports for strategic sectors like shipbuilding. Friends, Donald Trump thinks he can break the Canadian spirit. He thinks he can pit region against region. I can tell you, he's 100% wrong. He's underestimated us as Canadians. He underestimates the resilience of the Canadian people. Together, we're going to get through this stronger and more united than ever before. Together, we're going to protect Canada. We're going to protect Ontario. I want to thank you and may God bless the people of Ontario. Thank you.
We will now open the floor for questions from the media. Please come to the mic and state your name and outlet. Just a reminder, it's one question and one follow-up. First question.
Oh, Colin, I brought you a treat today. Premier Houston.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Ford, there's a lot of reporters here today, so we're hoping that you're not going to limit it to just 6 reporters. After your meeting in Washington last week, one of the individuals who you had met with, James Blair, the Deputy Chief of Staff in the White House, appeared to ridicule the Premier, suggesting that the White House never agreed that Canada would not be the 51st state. You came out of that meeting calling it constructive. How was that, in your view, constructive?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I think I've been pretty clear when I was down there and here. Canada will never, ever be the 51st state, and Canada is not for sale, and it will never be for sale.
Sorry, I didn't get an answer to that question about how that was constructive.
Well, I was very clear that Canada will never be the 51st state, and I've told that to Americans, politicians, and everyone down there, and I think they realize that.
You've also talked a lot about giving Americans more resources from Ontario and Canada. I'm wondering if you're concerned about doing business with an administration that now wants to annex Canada, annex Greenland, annex the Panama Canal and Gaza, and is now appearing to blame Ukraine for the war in Ukraine. Why should Ontario help that administration?
Well, first of all, I can tell you that over 75% of our jobs rely on free trade with the United States, but we're going to diversify our trade across the world like we have been for the last 7 years. We've seen $70 billion of investment coming in from all over the world, no matter if it's Germany with Volkswagen or you see the Honda expansion through Japan, and the list keeps going on and on and on. But we're going to make sure we diversify, focus as well on the 51 countries we have tariff-free deals with, and we're going to continue working.
Hi, Mr. Ford. Jack Howan from the Trillium.
Hi, Jack.
Oria gave your party a pretty scathing report card, noting that the PCs, unlike other parties, have not promised to end exclusionary zoning, fully limit development charges to commercial to residential conversions. On paper, doesn't your party seem like the choice for NIMBYs?
Well, I wouldn't say that at all. We've got more red tape, more regulations. We've went out there and encouraged the DCs to do half. But guess what? A few of them have stood up now. Carolyn Parish, and thank God we have Mayor Carolyn Parish, Mississauga. So for the first time, they're actually going to see growth. Under Bonnie Crombie, Mississauga actually shrunk. But we're going to see growth there. We're going to make sure that we see growth in Vaughan and other regions across the area. We've invested close to $3 billion on infrastructure, freeing up opportunities for them to build. We've given strong mayor powers to mayors in large cities right across the province. And Oria have always been a big supporter. So we're going to continue going out and making sure that we build new homes and have opportunities as well for all our real estate folks.
I'm wondering if you could explain why your public disclosures show that you're owed money by the family's label-making business and the family holding company.
Well, I don't discuss our private finances like anyone. I'm here to work for the people, and I'm going to continue working for the people, building Ontario, building Canada, and fighting against Donald Trump's tariffs.
Good morning, Allison Jones with the Canadian Press.
Hi, Allison. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Good. I wanted to ask about your death penalty comments. I know the story came out about a week ago, but it's been a while since we've seen you on the campaign trail. Your team said that your comments about Set 'em Right to Sparky were a poor taste joke, but listening to the audio, it didn't really sound like you were joking. Were you serious, and what did you mean by saying the provinces should take over parts of the criminal code?
Well, first of all, you know it was a joke, and the 1,200 people in the room knew it was a joke. But in saying that, you know what my frustration is? And everyone's frustration behind me too, is if their door gets kicked in, someone puts a gun to their head, threatens their family, steals their car, terrorizes neighborhoods. We're done with that. We're done with weak-kneed liberal JPs, justices of the peace, and judges, letting people out, not once, not twice, not 3, 4, 5 times, but 8 times. And guess what they do? They go back and commit the crimes. Do you know who this frustrates more than anyone? Our great police officers that protect our communities, that put their lives on the line every single day. They get in the back of the car, if we're lucky to arrest them first of all, they get in the back of the car, and then they start getting mouthy with our police officers saying, you can't do anything because I'll be out by the time you start the shift again. And guess what? They're out before before they start the shift again. I could ask every single person behind me, do they support our police? Do they support being tough on crime? When someone breaks into your house, kicks your door in, and harasses neighborhoods and terrorizes them, every single person would say we need to be tough on crime and we can't let the criminals back out on the streets.
I wanted to ask about something else you said at that police gala. You promised $1 billion to build a new police college, but
Yes.
neither you nor your team have offered anything in the way of details. That's a pretty startling amount of money to not tell voters how or when or where or why you're spending that. Can you offer us any more details today on that promise?
Well, we have a lot of announcement. The election's still a week out, so stay tuned. But we've graduated more police officers than any government in the history of this province. We've allocated over 2,000 police officers to the college, and we're paying for their schooling as well. Just like we're paying for nurses and nurse practitioners and doctors if they work in primary care. We're making sure we're building for the future. We're building to protect our communities, and we have great police officers across this province. And we're going to build them a beautiful college that they can be trained properly. That college is as old as Moses. And until you've ever been in there, I don't think you've been in there, but maybe one day you should drive up there and take a look around and see the conditions they have to train our great police officers. We're investing. We're going to make sure that we give them the best place to train our police officers.
Good morning, Camille with CBC French. You just said in your speech that the biggest barrier is not in Washington or Beijing, but in Ottawa. How is that showing a united Team Canada front?
Well, on this internal trade and making sure we get critical minerals out of the ground. So everyone's heard of the Ring of Fire. This has been going on for 25 years. Assessment after assessment after assessment after assessment. Where are we going to have assessments the rest of our lives? Well, America and the rest of the world are trying to eat our lunch. One of the most powerful tools we have in Canada is our energy and our critical minerals. Enough of the assessments and waiting around, and we're doing assessments up there with Martin Falls and Webequie First Nations. They're loving it. We got to deal with Aeroland. I'm going on the northern tour. I'm going to be hitting Cochrane, Timmins, Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie. I'll be up there, and I think there's 5 altogether. I think I've named all, and Thunder Bay. So we're going on a whirlwind tour up north. And I tell you, the people up north want the critical minerals. They want the forestry. They want jobs and security. And there's no one that wants jobs and more security than the First Nations communities that I've talked to up there. And I've mentioned just 3 of them that will bring jobs and opportunities and electricity to their communities.
And advance polls are now open. When we talk to voters, many of them are still confused about timing, about even unaware there's an election. So what if you do get the strong majority you're asking for, but also a record low turnout?
Well, I'm not too sure of anyone that doesn't know there's an election going on, so I don't know who you've been talking to. But, unless you're living underneath a rock, we're pounding the pavement, we're out there. I'm clocking more kilometers than all 3 parties combined. Just think of that. All 3 parties combined, I'm clocking more miles, and we're getting the message out there. This is about the tariffs. This is about our economy. Nothing moves without a strong economy. Nothing moves in our healthcare and our education and our infrastructure, that we're spending over $200 billion on infrastructure, without a strong economy. That's the foundation of our province. The economy is the foundation of our country. And we're going to focus on the economy and fight Donald Trump's tariffs every step of the way. That's what this election's about.
Hi, Mr. Ford. Laura Stone, Globe and Mail.
Hi, Laura.
Hi. Not only is the Ontario government running ads on U.S. networks, you're actually sponsoring shows on Fox News, like Sean Hannity's interview with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Can you explain to taxpayers why they're spending tens of millions to sponsor Hannity, Trump, and Musk?
Well, first of all, those ads are extremely effective. They've hit over 500 million people. But what you did leave out were advertising on CNN, I'm on CNN, CNBC, I'm on Fox News, because you know what we have to do? We have to tell the Canadian story. We have to tell the American friends, and they are our friends and they are our allies, that without Canada, there's going to be inflation. A Trump tariff on Canada is a tax on Americans. Simple. A Trump tariff on Canada is a tax on Americans. And we want to explain to them when they see plants shut down in the U.S., yes, is it going to hurt Canada? Sure it is. But they're going to see big time damage in the U.S. right across manufacturing. The supply chain is so intertwined. We need each other. We need to build that Amcan fortress I've been talking about.
Can you reveal how much money the government is spending on these ads? All we've heard is tens of millions. That could be between 10 and 100 million. Do you not think taxpayers have the right to know?
Well, the taxpayers have the right to know everything, and it's always transparent. It can always be FOI. I can't give you the exact figure, but I've never had a bigger bang for our buck when we're fighting for our lives, when we're fighting for the people's jobs behind me, to get the message out that we're close allies. And by the way, that ad, probably the best one I've ever seen in my life. And I've even heard it from the media. It's a good ad. So we're going to keep fighting. We're going to fight tooth and nail and make sure we protect families, protect jobs, protect the economy, protect businesses and communities. That's what we're going to do.
Mr. Ford, Mike Crowley from CBC.
Mike?
Question for you about the 401. Engineers are saying that at a minimum, this tunnel is going to cost $60 billion, quite possibly more. So if you win this election, are you going to take that as permission from taxpayers to spend $60 billion or more on what's probably the biggest single election promise anyone has ever made in the history of election of Ontario?
Well, that's a great question, Mike. You know, $60 billion for 50 to 100 years, probably 100 years. Mike, it's costing us $56 billion to our economy every single year because of backlogged traffic. 400 series highways will be maxed out in 10 years. That's the difference between ourselves and the other parties. We're visionaries. We're thinking 50 years and 100 years out. We're going to make sure goods and services and people can get back and forth in a rapid fashion. The worst thing you can do as a government is stop building. And just to give you some figures, you mentioned 60 billion. Well, we're spending 28 billion on roads and bridges and highways. We're spending 70 billion on transit. So almost 2.5 times as much. We're spending $200 billion on building hospitals and schools and infrastructure all around the province. We are a party that builds. When you build infrastructure, that means jobs, good paying jobs. We're investing in skills development fund. These are staggering figures, $2.5 billion to train the people for the future jobs of our province and our country. That's what we're going to do.
And I want to ask you about the $200 checks. Why is it that your government sent these checks to every single person in the province, including millionaires, people who don't necessarily need the $200? And it kind of got me curious. When the check arrived for you, what did you do with it?
I haven't received my check yet, so I haven't opened my mail.
So what are you going to spend it on?
I'm going to donate it. I'll go to the food bank and donate it. But let's talk about that check. Folks, this is the difference for these people behind me between our government and the three parties running against us. They believe it's their money. Politicians believe that's our money. You know where it came from? It came out of their paychecks every single week for 52 weeks. People are sick and tired of being taxed to death. We've never raised a tax. The only government in recent memory that I can remember, federally, municipally, provincially, have never ever raised a tax. Matter of fact, Mike, we've done something differently. We've put money back into people's pockets by getting rid of the tolls on the last 44 kilometers on the 407, saving $7,200. Saving tolls on the 412 and 418. Saving every time my friends behind us fill up for gas. There should be a big sign there that says the province saves you 11 cents a liter compared to the federal government with the worst tax ever, the carbon tax. They may put it up to 20 cents a liter. They're already at about 15, 16 cents. It's terrible. So when we saw more income come into the province, the first thing we said, that's not our money, it's the people's money. Let's give it back to the people, and that will go directly into the economy. It'll allow people to do things they might otherwise not be able to do. So we believe in reducing taxes and putting it into companies and into people.
Morning, Premier. My name is Tariq, and I'm from Awaz Entertainment Television. Thank you very much for taking time coming on your busy schedule.
Thank you.
Visiting Milton. I'm sure you will support Hamid.
Thank you.
As
He's the
endorsed.
best.
Well, we're going to make sure he's going to
Good,
win.
thank you.
Okay. Well, I have a suggestion as well as a question.
Yes.
Because I have a personal, first-hand, hand-on experience with the Canadian businessmen.
Yes.
They go outside. They never really gave traditionally any importance to the other markets. Say, for example, Middle East. They were so happy, laid back, dealing with American. Now they learn a lesson, but a hard way. The problem is the shipping time, the infrastructure, the fare. I mean, the businesses cannot succeed unless, as a government, you will help them to be competitive and give them all those facilities. Nice to deal inter-provincial, but the money should come from outside. We need to have our own cars, our own brands, our own way of helping those things. Why are we not doing it? And what can you do to help to make the embassies to move? They are not proactive. You guys are fired up.
Great question.
Everything, but
Yeah, great question. But what we do, we have offices around the world with Ontario representatives. We've seen over $70 billion from around the world and here in Ontario invest into the people. Invest into the people right here in Ontario, because our number one selling feature are the people. We have the most skilled people anywhere in the entire world. We're going to continue diversifying that trade across the world. But I agree 1,000%. We need to onboard as much as we can here. We can make anything here in Ontario and across the country, in Canada. We have the greatest country in the world. And I can tell you folks, what we make here, no other state, single state, can make what Ontario makes. No matter if it's the vehicles or the high tech or the ships or the boats or the helicopters and the airplanes, and I could go on and on and on. It's endless how diversified our economy is.
and my follow-up question, Premier, is to you and to Mr. Hamid as well.
Yeah.
All the funds, all the sports goes to the big media houses, but the little ones like us who are struggling are ignored. Would you kindly consider helping us to survive? We're fighting people.
Yep.
We cannot afford them. People, money is going to the people they love. They wanna deal
Yep.
with, but they are ignoring genuine people like us with
Yep.
small setup, and we are almost closing.
I
down.
agree 1,000%. The mainstream media understands. Our government, as a PC government, doesn't say, here, do this, do that. I believe in the ethnic media. I think the spend, I believe, was $2 million last year. But we'll look into it, because the ethnic media plays a critical role, especially since we have 110 nationalities in Ontario, 200 languages being spoken. So I hear you loud and clear, my friend.
Hi, Mr. Ford. Siobhan Moore, CTV News.
Are you willing to give them a little bit of your money, Siobhan?
I'm going to protect my money, if that's okay. I'm wondering what you're hoping to accomplish with your trip tomorrow to Washington to meet with governors, noting that they're going to be coming off a meeting with the U.S. president, and you were kept a little away from the inner circle of the White House in your last visit.
Well, there's no plan, and there wasn't a plan to go down and meet the president himself, but the people that are in his ear on a daily basis, myself and Premier Houston are going to be down there making sure we communicate. Last time I was down there, they told me how important governors play a role in decisions that are being made. So we're going to meet the governors, we're going to meet the senators, we're going to communicate. It's going to be an in and out trip. We'll go in the morning, come back at night, but it's so important to have the presence of two Canadian premiers there. The worst thing we could do is sit back and say, let's not bother going down there. Let's not communicate with our largest trading partner. It is critical. There's three things that happen. You go down there and listen, first of all, what their concerns are. Number two, we communicate. And number three is one of the most important things you can do in business, in politics, in anything, is building relationships. Building relationships until you can call the person up on their cell phone and have a conversation to get the message right up to the president.
This is the first time, I think, in 10 days, if my count is right, that you've had an event like this, facing questions from reporters as a group. Some of your opponents have said you've been in hiding. Where have you been? Why have you not done an event like this till now?
Boy, last time I checked, you guys grilled us for 90 minutes 2 days ago. I'm out in front of the people more than anyone. So, anyways, next question. I'm just out all over the province. It's non-stop, folks. 5 in the morning till midnight every single day.
Thank you. This concludes today's press conference.
Oh. Okay, calling it.
Tell me, is your future in someone else's?
You might not be able to hear the question. Oh, here it is.
Yeah, we got
Nova Scotia's Auditor General wants you to withdraw your government's bill, which she said would jeopardize her independent role if that goes ahead. What are you going to do with that bill?
Well, there's a bill before the legislature. It's part of the budget. There's lots of bills before the legislature. I'm an accountant myself. I was surprised to hear the Auditor General say that it could impact your independence. It's the same as in place in Manitoba, the same as in place in Alberta. So we'll continue. We'll work with the Auditor General's office. Great respect for the work that they do. We'll follow their recommendations, and we'll listen carefully. But we're just trying to kind of level set a series of things.
So you're not going to withdraw it. It is going to go ahead.
The plan is to go through. We'll talk to the Auditor General's office. We're proceeding.
Thank you. This concludes today's press conference.
Back home!